It's May 7th, 1965. The 588-foot vessel Cedarville is sailing in the Straits of Mackinac under a heavy fog, but one ship isn't responding to the Cedarville's calls. On that morning, the Cedarville had departed Calcite with 14,411 tons of limestone, headed for Gary, Indiana with a crew of 35. The Cedarville was built as the A.F. Harvey in 1927 at River Rouge, Michigan, as a straight-decked bulk freighter for the Pittsburgh Steamship Company. The ship measures 588 feet in length, 60 feet in width, and 32 feet in depth. In 1956, the Cedarville was transferred to the Bradley Transportation Line and given a self-unloading system and a gray hull. It's around 9 a.m. on May 7th, 1965. The Strait of Mackinac is a traffic jam full of ships due to the heavy fog, something that had thickened since the early morning. The fog, in fact, was so thick that the Mackinac Bridge, which could normally be easily spotted, was only visible from a couple of yards away. It's past 9 a.m. in the morning. The 420-foot Norwegian vessel Topdalsfjord is coming from Lake Michigan, headed for Port Arthur, Ontario, to load grain. It's around 9:30 a.m., and the vessel is passing under the Mackinac Bridge. The Topdalsfjord has sailed smoothly up to this point, but that was something that would soon change. At 9 a.m. in the morning, the Cedarville is heading straight towards the Mackinac Bridge. The captain of the Cedarville, Martin E. Joppich, is in his first year as a captain, and ultimately last. As it further sailed, the ship passed the Benson Ford, and Captain Joppich made a call by radio telephone to the Steinbrenner. The vessel warned of a certain vessel that was completely unresponsive. Joppich commented that his radar had picked up a vessel eastbound on the west side of the bridge. So, at 9:38 a.m., he made a call to the vessel. But it was the German vessel Wiesenberg that picked up. Joppich saw that the vessel had cleared the bridge. He called the Wiesenberg again and asked for its position. The Wiesenberg reported that it was west of the bridge, but that a Norwegian vessel was ahead of it. That Norwegian vessel was the Topdalsfjord. The ship was clouded from sight, seen only on radar, and heard by the sounding of her horn. Captain Rasmus Holland operated the horn, sounding it at the regulated intervals. Back on the Cedarville, wheelsman Leonard Gabriziak is steering the vessel. From his vantage point, he could almost see everything. Everything but the radar. This was being watched intensely by third mate Charles Cook. As the Cedarville sailed on in the thick white fog, it began to hear the whistles of a nearby ship. The whistles of the Topdalsfjord. Captain Joppich ordered the speed to be cut from full ahead. Tension rose. Joppich tried to contact the vessel, but all attempts were unanswered. Tension rose higher. The Cedarville began sounding its whistle. Third mate Charles Cook, who had been intensely watching the radar, looked up and commented, "She's pretty close." Just then, a lookout on the port wing shouted, "There she is!" and another at the bow shouted, "Half a block away!" Captain Joppich ordered the speed to be cut to slow. All eyes in the pilot house were now on the Topdalsfjord, which was a mere 100 feet away. The Topdalsfjord radar operator, Jan Kristall, had been watching the Cedarville on radar shortly after their ship had passed under the Mackinac Bridge. It seemed as if the vessel would pass on the starboard side. But soon, the Cedarville was so close that the radar wasn't needed to see the vessel. John Kristall then rushed out of the radar room, intending to warn the captain. The Cedarville was coming across the bow. The captain had already seen it and ordered the engines reversed. It's 9:55 a.m. on May 7th, 1965. The Cedarville is sailing near the Mackinac Bridge in a fog so thick that the bridge can only be seen from yards away. In the pilot house of the Cedarville, third mate shouted, "Captain, we're going to be hit!" Captain Joppich then ordered the engines to full ahead and hard right, but nothing could be done. The Topdalsfjord slammed into the starboard side of the Cedarville. Shock and horror showed on the faces of the men on both ships. Then, the two ships lost sight of each other, disappearing into the fog. It would be the last time the two ships saw each other. The topsail had suffered a damaged bow in the collision, but was otherwise unharmed. The vessel sailed out of the straits and into the St. Mary's River, where it arrived at Sault Ste. Marie. As for the Cedarville, the engines had been stopped, the port anchor dropped, and a mayday had been sent out. The vessel had suffered a 20-foot gash on its starboard side, something that extended vertically from top to bottom. Water was entering hold number 2. After realizing the damage, Captain Joppich had the port anchor raised and planned to beach the Cedarville on Mackinac City Beach, 4 miles away. It was a race. The competitor, the water. The Cedarville continued to send mayday messages as it sailed full speed towards Mackinac City Beach. Then, 2.3 miles from the collision spot, the Cedarville rolled over and sank. Seamen were thrown into the 37-degree water. Then, a needed savior, the Wiesenberg, came to the rescue, saving 25 men. But 10 men were to be accounted for. Searches continued, but the 10 men were never found. Again, Rogers City mourned, as it had 7 years ago after the loss of the Carl D. Bradley. It's cross-examination. Up to this point, Captain Joppich has been silent, but now, even after he pleaded the Fifth, he was required to speak under federal maritime law. As inquiries continued, Joppich surprised investigators by contradicting his plea to innocence and stating that in the 63 minutes before the collision, he computed the vessel's speed to 12 miles an hour, almost full speed and well over what it should have been in the conditions. Eventually, it was ruled that Martin Joppich was to blame for the collision, as he was sailing too fast in the fog, and that the decision to ground it on Mackinac City Beach was ill-advised, as Graham Shoals was a mile away from the collision spot, and Old Mackinac Point was 2.2 miles away. To put things into perspective, the Cedarville sank 2.3 miles away from the collision spot. Had he chosen to ground it at either of these spots, more lives would have been saved. Joppich lost his license. The Cedarville lies beneath 100 feet of water, around 2 miles away from Mackinac City docks. Anyway, subscribe for more shipwreck videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.